Hello and welcome to the first episode of Jim Stewart's Historical Tonic for Fragile White Folks. Today, I will be introducing the series by giving a brief statement about the series itself and will follow with the first episode. The National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum is following its February Black History Matters series with 15 March days of Jim Stewart's Historical Tonic for Fragile White Folks. Beginning March 1st, Dr. James Brewer Stewart, Professor Emeritus at Macalester College in Minnesota, will address white supremacy after the Civil War. Stewart will present 16 mini lectures, Historical Tonic for Fragile White Folks, that are 6 to 15 minutes long in a casual talk style. Stewart sees his videos as a way to challenge the historical amnesia that exists about white supremacy. Quote, each of these videos describes wrenching developments that usually get glossed over in the history textbooks, but that's precisely why it's so essential to know about them, end quote, explains Dr. Stewart. He intends to help people see this neglected history as it truly was, and to own that history. Dr. Stewart wants Historical Tonic to be shared far and wide at no cost. He is inviting the public to join him and videographer Dan Ripple in a high-impact YouTube video campaign to mobilize resistance against white supremacist perversions of American history and assaults against people of color. Stewart emphasizes that, quote, to maximize the tonic impact, it must be promoted as widely as possible, end quote. He encourages viewers to, quote, recommend our videos to your family, friends, and colleagues, end quote. And he wants folks to know that he is available to collaborate on programming with church groups, civic organizations, and educational classes. We will be beginning the series today with the episode titled, Where Diving Deep Takes Us, and we'll follow up daily with the rest of the episodes up until March 15th. Thank you for your time, and I hope you will enjoy Dr. Stewart's Historical Tonic for Fragile White Folks. Thank you.
I'm Jim Stewart, and I'm an American historian who teaches and writes about white supremacy from my home base here at Macalester College. I was over at George Floyd's memorial just yesterday, looking at all the reminders, all the memorials, all the flowers, all the objects, all the testimonies, and standing in front of it and asking myself, what should I be doing? And the answer really is what I'm doing right now. I am an American historian, and I do teach about and write books about the history of white supremacy in the United States. And when I visited George Floyd's memorial, I saw white supremacy in action, and I saw African American responses and resistance to it. Now, this morning happens to be August 24th, and I rolled out of bed in the morning and I found out that in Kenosha, Wisconsin, the videotape or the body cam indicates that police officers shot another black motorist in the back as he was trying to get into his car. The question then rattles around in everybody's head again, what do we do about white supremacy? Especially for white folks, and it's white folks that I'm talking to, people who look like me. We white folks are really important in making change happen, and the problem is that we have a hard time in the long run showing up, and that's my worry, and that's why I'm making this video. The video comes from my understanding that once, twice, maybe in American history, white people did show up in big numbers in the abolitionist movement before and during and after the American Civil War, and during the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s. We showed up, but then backlash happened, and we backed away, and good things stopped happening. Instead, Jim Crow won, so did Richard Nixon, and now most recently, so has Donald Trump. So the point of these videos is to strengthen the understanding of people like you and me, good-hearted white people, strengthen our understanding of what we can do and how we got here. My answer about how we do those things involves 15 additional videos, kind of like these, that are going to be recorded and put on YouTube. Each is only going to be about 7 or 8 minutes long, and each takes account of an important milestone, an important symbol, or an important event that happened in the past between 1865 and 1960 that involved white supremacy. This isn't African American history. This is the history of white folks. Because the fact of the matter is we show up all the time in the world of black people. We don't think we do because we live in a segregated world. We don't feel our presence in the African American community because most of us are a long, long ways away from it. But the influence of white culture, white power, white investment, white public policy greets African Americans every time they step outside the door. To them, the best way to explain it maybe is to see it as white noise. It's the background. It's what reminds you all the time that this is going on. Another way to think about it is to think about it as a law of gravity. The idea that the world's, or at least our world's, relationships are governed by pulls and tugs, that white supremacy as an unseen and unfelt by us force moves in the world, moves in the community, and we have a very, very hard time seeing it because we're making it. We're like fish swimming in water and not knowing what our medium is, but just taking it for granted. It's a real problem. Some people say that it's such a problem for us. There's a sociologist who argues this. Her name is Robin DiAngelo, and she's written a book called White Fragility. And that book argues that people who look like you and me are so suffused in this white noise and law of gravity that we are so unconsciously racist in our attitudes and outlooks that we're really not worth much when it comes to actually standing up for black people. And that's a point of view that's very heavily contested in what I'm doing here. When white people stand up, good things happen. When white people walk away, good things stop happening. History, I believe, is the way to make sure that we continue to stand up. I have an actual title for this video package, and it's called Jim Stewart's Historical Tonic for Fragile White Folks. Each one of them describes wrenching developments that are usually glossed over in history textbooks. But that's precisely why they are so essential to know about, because they demonstrate that you're not responsible for what happened. That's important. That takes guilt off your back. Back then is somebody else's problem, not yours. They give you a vivid understanding of how and why our ancestors left us in such a god-awful mess. Why you have to wake up in the morning and find out about what happened in Kenosha. You'll also see much more clearly if you look into the past than you've ever seen before the tangles of white supremacy that back then has left to us. And best of all, these videos tell you more than you ever need to know about how to begin unwinding white supremacy. Facing up to our nation's oppressive past and owning it takes a whole lot of courage and a whole lot of tough-mindedness. A dear friend of mine who's a marvelous historian says that this is the tough stuff of American history. But if we learn to be able to own that history, we do have both the courage and the knowledge to stand up against white supremacy today. And that's how I think historical perspective allows us to replace white fragility with high-impact insight, commitment, and ability. These are free videos, no follow-on promotions, no hidden costs. So get to your laptop, your tablet, your smartphone, download them now. Jim Stewart's Historical Tonic for Fragile White Folks.